Hello and welcome. My name is Phil Underwood. I'm the Engagement Manager here at the Society for the Environment. Today, I am joined by our Chief Executive, Emma Wilcox, and the Chair of our Registration Authority, David Lloyd-Roach, also Honorary Fellow of the Society for the Environment. So thank you very much for joining us today, the two of you. Today we're going to be talking about the very new and upcoming topic of the Registered Environmental Practitioner registration, which was launched in January of 2021. So, can you both hear me for a start?
Indeed.
Can do. Yes. Hi, Phil.
Excellent. Hello. So we're going to be talking about all things to do with the Registered Environmental Practitioner registration, which, like I say, is pretty new at the time of recording, and it's something that we will be available to environmental professionals from across multiple different sectors. But the idea of this interview of sorts is to delve a little bit deeper into what the REnvP registration is. That's the post-nominals for the full title, and how it might be useful for you, either as an individual looking to progress in your environmental career or discipline, or maybe you employ environmental professionals. But we shall see where these questions take us, and we'll get some insights from Emma and David. So let's kick things off for a start with something a bit. Let's go for 3 statements that Registered Environmental Practitioner stands for. Emma, if I go over to you for that one.
Great question. First of all, the same with all of the Society's registrations, they're designed to be broad. So it's about your own profession and demonstrating environmental competence. So as with all of our other registrations, this is about proven environmental competence within your own discipline, be that engineering or environmental management or ecology or architecture or whatever else it may be. The other really important thing about our registrations is it's not just about proving competence on a day of assessment. It's about a commitment to how you're going to work. We require everyone to sign a code of professional conduct and commit to CPD. So for me, it really stands for a commitment to good environmental practice and how you actually work as a professional. And third, doesn't have to be, but is absolutely can be a pathway to chartership with us as well.
Okay, so that's proven competence, commitment to good practice, and a possible pathway to chartership. Okay, good. So with that introduction of sorts, what is the REnvP registration? Could you explain a little bit more, Emma?
Sure. So as I've already said, it is cross-professional. So it's about applying a set of competencies within your own profession. It is equivalent to a level 5 qualification, so in England an HND, HNC, and it's really important that is a peer review recognition of your competence. So it's not what I think and what you think and the team at Society think, it's what your peers think. And again, this is applicable across all of our registrations. And it sits between our technician, our REnvTech register, which is at level 3, and our chartered environmentalist, our CEnv, at level 7 as well.
Okay. And is it just a case of having a relevant, correct level of qualification, or is there more to it than that?
So there's 2 parts to being competent. There's having the right knowledge. There's also the experience, that kind of practical, hands-on work in whatever part of the profession that may be. You need to have both of those to meet our competencies for our registrations. Okay,
and so it's a mixture of the 2, and it isn't a necessity that you have a level 5 qualification. From my understanding, you don't have to have that level, but you can make that up through your other experience and being able to demonstrate that you actually meet that level without having a certificate to say so. Is that right?
Absolutely. Okay. What the assessors are looking for is that your knowledge is at that level, and you don't have to have a certain qualification to demonstrate that. You can do that through a number of other mechanisms, but it's about you as an individual. Do you have competence, so the knowledge at that level and the experience that we're looking for as well?
Okay, exactly the same as the REnvTech and Chartered Environmentalist in a way, but at different levels. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, David, you were instrumental in terms of being or heading up the group of people within the registration authority to make this registration happen. So could you give us a bit of an idea of why it was introduced?
Well, yes, I suppose building on what Emma said, really, the society had two existing registrations, Registered Environmental Technician and Chartered Environmentalist, and they sit on the qualifications framework at sort of, potentially sort of opposite ends. The Registered Environmental Technician is a level 3 qualification, as Emma said, and Chartered Environmentalist is level 7. And there's a bit of a gap between those two registrations, and Registered Environmental Practitioner coming in at level 5 straddles those two. And so, one obvious sort of reason for introducing it was to provide, as Emma's mentioned, a pathway between the two qualifications for those who are looking to develop their careers. Another good reason was that discussions and consultations with a variety of stakeholders, licensed members and employers indicated that there was a likely demand for it, that there was this gap between what existed, and it would sort of fit quite nicely in that space. And then another key thing was that the society being sort of instrumental in developing and launching the environmental practitioner degree apprenticeship, which is a bit of a mouthful, and that's positioned as a sort of a level 6 qualification, and there was nothing that sort of existed at the time that would have been immediately accessible to those who've been through that apprenticeship to sort of pick up as a qualification. And so REnvP sits very, very nicely and is a natural destination for those that have completed the apprenticeship.
Okay, so various reasons then, all of which came together to make the obvious decision to take the registration forward and make it happen, by the sounds of it. And I guess the consultations themselves, and through the knowledge we've built over the years, that environmental professionals don't just work at technician level or chartership level. There's clearly a lot of environmental professionals working at that practitioner level who do fantastic things, and they're the kind of people we want to recognise. Does that sound about right?
It does indeed. I mean, it's an ideal cross-sector qualification. I mean, that's the beauty of the qualification as it sits. And I think, as you alluded to, in your introduction, Phil, it sits very nicely in that sort of environment, and it's applicable to a range of roles that can be seen and across various different sort of professions and industry sectors. I mean, whether you're a biodiversity officer, or whether you happen to be an environmental consultant, or whether you're a water quality technical advisor, for example, a fisheries officer. There's a whole range of different jobs and job roles where this qualification would sort of fit in very, very nicely. And, as mentioned before, of course, it does suit very nicely those that will be aspiring to become a chartered environmentalist. And it's a very neat and tidy way for those who could be at a relatively early stage in their career to pick up a professional qualification that's important in its own right, and introduce them to the world of environmental qualifications and provide that stepping stone through to chartered environmentalist.
Okay, so yeah, it's available to quite a number of people who are working in the environmental sphere, I guess, rather than the environmental sector, I suppose. That's quite a broad thing. Environmental professionals can certainly work in every sector, I guess. Would that be almost correct?
It would be more than almost correct.
Bad choice of words.
It's importantly correct, Bill. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Excellent, which is highly important, as we know.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's who it's for and what it is. Let's look at maybe why somebody might want to be a registered environmental practitioner. So, Emma, what would your number one benefit of achieving REnvP be for an individual?
I would say number one is about the external credibility that it gives you. And as I said before, not just as a demonstration of your competence, which of course is really important, but also a demonstration on your commitment to how you work as a professional So whether that is against a code of professional conduct or in terms of maintaining your competence through continued professional development, it makes you stand out as a real professional, that you make those commitments, and that's how about you go about your daily work.
Okay, I'm also going to put David on the spot as well. What would your number one benefit would be for a...
Well, I suppose I could sort of, there's a sort of cop out in a sense. Emma's still number one. No, I think there's another dimension to this as well. I think there's a whole family community of professional environmentalists, and I think it's a sort of an entree into that world, and it opens up networking opportunities. So I think, yes, it's that mark of recognition and demonstration of competence. But equally, I think it sort of introduces you to a family of professionals, like-minded professionals.
Okay, so it brings you into that community that are looking to do positive things for the environment, which, from our standpoint, can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So let's change tack slightly. Let's look at an employer's perspective for a moment, and I'd like to draw on your experiences as senior leaders within your organisations. If I were to put you in a similar position, say in a consultancy that specialises in environmental projects for clients, how would having REnvP members of staff help you? How would that be useful? Let's go to Emma first.
I mean, completely, again, as I said before, it's about that external recognition. I think that kind of goes without saying, whether it's to clients or to other peers in your own profession, to kind of demonstrate that. But I think one of the really great things about professional registration is the career progression and supporting that development framework. I mean, David's just touched on the kind of the networking opportunities, and sitting all around that is that kind of development. So as an employer, it's really important to me to have a framework and have a set of standards that my staff can follow, and something that gives them and me a real value in them having a professional registration as well.
Okay. And I know that's something that's, from my experience of talking to employers on a reasonably regular basis, chartered environmentalist registration is one thing that is seen as one of the requirements to gain that promotion, or to work on these particular projects or sign off these certain reports. David, would you see that REnvP would fit a similar kind of framework to that for an employer?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think it's important that particularly in a sort of competitive world and securing contracts and everything else, I think it's important that employers can demonstrate competence and have a sort of an externally validated way of doing that. So yeah, very much sitting alongside that for chartered environmentalists. I think it provides depth across the workforce. So yeah, very much so.
Okay. And I think clients are more and more asking for environmental competence within tenders and so on. Clearly, for many, many years now, chartered engineer has been asked for because of the status that holds. Environmental registration is moving towards that kind of that realm of being required. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that, David?
No, I think you've pretty much sort of covered it. I think that's, yes, I mean, there are other perhaps sort of longer established titles out there, but and it would be fair to say that they have set a benchmark, particularly as sort of a level that's well established, and I think the society's own registered titles now sit very, very nicely in that space. So thank you, I suppose, if they're listening in, for having established that, and it's sort of adds credibility, which is good.
Okay, and this might be a fairly simple answer to this question. I'm going to give to Emma. I think is REnvP something that employers will value? Why that might be?
Of course, yes. Really, kind of lots and lots of reasons. As I said before, it's about competence, it's about trust. So as an employer, knowing that my employees' peers recognise them and trust them is hugely valuable. Whether it's about going to clients or anybody else, one of the important things when you're just talking about levels, we're all responsible for the environment, regardless of what level we're working at. And we're all responsible for working professionally. So whether you are at a CEnv level or an REnvP, REnvTech, knowing that you're signing up to a code of professional conduct and how you're going to work is hugely important and hugely valuable as an employer. And that certainly would make a company stand out and the individuals within it as well.
Okay, sounds like something that would be useful to put on your CV if you're applying for jobs and so on. You've got that Registered Environmental Practitioner registration. It's something that might stand out a little bit.
Absolutely, but also for companies to put on their own kind of websites when they're trying to attract new staff as well. I think it's really important for employers to show how they value staff and how they value the environment and professionalism, and that really attracts new people coming along as well.
This is true. Okay. Now, David and Emma, actually, you mentioned that RFP could be a stepping stone towards chartership as a chartered environmentalist. David, I wondered if you could expand on that slightly and maybe let us know how that transition can be made from RFP to chartership.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there is a familiarity between the registered titles. When you actually sort of, put the three as they are now side by side, you can see the family relationship between the competence categories that span across the three. And they've been, very consciously developed in a sort of a progressive path because they've been aligned to the qualification framework and the descriptors and the standards that underpin those. So, yes, they've been, or REnvP has been sort of consciously put into that framework in a way in which somebody who does seek progression can see the familiarity and they can see how progression is articulated. And, potentially starting as a registered environmental technician and progressing on to a registered environmental practitioner and onto chartered environmentalist, it would be a sort of a fairly standard thing that somebody could do, because the way in which it's been constructed, it should be straightforward to see it. But I think it's also equally important to say, if I can, that we talk about progression, but let's not lose sight of the fact that it's a registered title in its own right, and for many people, it will be exactly what they seek, and it would be what they would be most suitably suited to. And that could be for a variety of reasons. It might well be, we've touched on other professional titles, that what they might call as their natural profession could be in a completely different space. They could be a chartered engineer. They may be a chartered scientist, for whom it's important that they want to demonstrate their environmental credentials, but they may not see themselves operating at that sort of level in the environmental sphere. To use that analogy again, so I think it's let's not lose sight of the fact that it is it's an important title in its own right, and for many people it would be the most suitable title for them.
Absolutely, and I guess on top of that, those that are a registered environmental technician, when they apply for that, because REnvP wasn't available at the time, they could well be at that level already, couldn't they? But the REnvTech registration was the only suitable registration that was available at the time.
Absolutely. I mean, without getting sort of too forensic about it, our standards are thresholds, and they're structured that way. So, I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that, when somebody's demonstrated a standard and they've secured a professional title, it doesn't mean that they're not progressing, in their own way, sort of beyond that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, there was no REnvP when REnvTech was introduced. And so for many individuals, that would have been the natural, point for them to qualify. And those individuals, we know, will be, ready now, and may well be a long way, if not there, to demonstrate their REnvP credentials.
Okay. Now let's have a think about CPD. Why is CPD a requirement for RFP registration, David?
Well, I think what we've got to remember is we tend to talk about competence, and the standard is sort of articulated in terms of the competence an individual has to demonstrate. But there's two facets to a professional qualification. That's competence and commitment. And the commitment's important. That's the commitment to the profession and the professionalism that goes with it. And CPD across all professional sectors, is a critical component to that. It's the means by which, an individual is maintaining and developing and building on their competence, whether they have a particular reason to, because they want to progress, or whether or not, they just need to be current in their sector. So, I think it's very important that individuals undertake CPD. It is a cornerstone to the qualification. It's required to be demonstrated at the point in which the individual qualifies, as is the commitment to continue it beyond then.
Okay, that was a very thorough answer, and I think we've probably covered most of the how and why become REnvP registered. Let's look a bit broader, shall we? How important are environmental practitioners to tackling environmental challenges, Emma?
Absolutely fundamental.
I thought you might say that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So this is all about decision making and about people with the right competence, the right knowledge, the right skills making decisions. So it's really easy to make a decision out of the best interest of your heart, genuinely want to do the right thing, which can lead to a whole bunch of unintended consequences, not just in the environment, in any area of life. But having people who really understand the system that they're working within, the implications of that, can think through all the other factors and work cross-sector as well. One of the really key things with environmental professionalism, as we've talked about, it is not just the environmental managers or the ecologists, it's also the engineers and the architects and everybody else. So having that kind of breadth of competence and getting people to work together will mean that we can address the challenges in a really productive way that doesn't then have some kind of unintended consequence in the future. So absolutely vital for me.
Absolutely. There's a message that hopefully will ring true to a lot of people. So why would you register as a REnvP now? Why is the environment so important right now? Again, I'll go to Emma for that one.
So it's the kind of awful pandemic and the kind of the horrible things that have come out of that actually leave us in a position where we can make some changes that just a few months ago we would have never have thought possible. But we've really got to grasp that opportunity, and lots of people talk about building back better. But so many people have embraced this kind of technology. So many people have dramatically reduced their carbon because circumstances in a way that nobody thought was possible. And we've suddenly realised that all these things actually are possible. So I think there's a real opportunity now to build back better. And by getting your registration, you can really demonstrate, number one, your commitment and really kind of step up and be part of that, part of the solution to some of the challenges that we face. As I said before, and David touched on really nicely, networking. So lots of people are going to be looking for lots of different answers, and the more cross professions we can have working together, the better. So again, that's really good. And recognising the importance of all of this, but also recognising the importance that times have been really tough as well for people with furlough and lots of other things. The Society's board have reduced the fees as well at the moment, which is always a kind of a nice to have for people as well, just that little bit to kind of help people to do their registration now if they're able.
When does the reduction in fees continue till at the moment?
Currently it's running until the end of March 2021.
Okay, so it might be very, very useful depending on what dates you are actually watching this video.
Sure.
So something to certainly make the most of. Okay, fantastic. Any final words of advice? I'll go to David first. We've covered a lot.
Yeah, I suppose it's building on that sort of networking opportunity. Don't lose sight of the fact that the qualifications are offered through professional bodies, the licensed members of the society, and they exist to support individuals to become professionally qualified. And of course, they are networking bodies in their own right. So, I would very much urge, aspirant registered environmental practitioners to seek guidance and help from others. other professionals who've been there before them. They will be delighted to help. I can guarantee that. That's one thing that you will be assured. And so, yes, I would go for that. Seek help and support.
There is some excellent support available out there. Emma, any final words from you?
Well, firstly, I'll just echo what David said about our professional body partners and the assessors in there. They've got lots of mentors, lots of people to help you. So really kind of reach out. And if you're not sure which organisation is right for you, reach out to us at Society and we can help you with that. The other thing I would say is when you come to apply, think really broadly about not just your professional work, but if you are a volunteer or if you do some other work in your kind of your own kind of outside work life, then you may be able to demonstrate competencies that way as well. So think about the kind of the entirety of what you do rather than just your paid employment as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, David and Emma, for your time today. No doubt we'll see you on a video quite soon, hopefully again. Very briefly, in terms of how to register as RFP, you may well have got the gist already, but you'll need to be a member of one of our licensed member bodies. There's 24 of those to choose from. You'll need to showcase how you meet the competencies. So there are 12 key competencies for RFP registration. You're likely to need to submit your CV and a record of your CPD, so a CPD record, and to put the words around the other way around. And potentially you might be requested to come in or invited to come in for an interview with your professional body. And that's not a necessity for RFP, but some professional bodies will ask for that if it will help you in your application. If you want to find out more, head to our website, which is socenv.org.uk/REnvP, and there's details on there and signposts to relevant information and the relevant professional bodies. And remember,
Phil, can I just add to that as well? It's designed to be a very accessible registration as well. So if you've got a particular issue with a written piece or with something else, again, please reach out to us or one of the organisations, and there's lots of things that we can do to help as well. So please don't be put off by the application processes. Absolutely.
Thank you very much for that. And like I say, we are here to help. And as Emma's just reiterated there, we're definitely here to help if we can. So please do get in touch if we can be of use. Other than that, thank you very much for watching, and we shall see you in the next video.